Okay, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN. I almost said Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. That's too much stuff going on. Not that you guys mind getting all this stuff. Anyway, so KUDEN episode 240. Wow, man. We're almost at, holy cow. Just seems like, I don't know. I guess it was a couple of months ago, but how long ago did we do, how long would 40 episodes be? We did 200, so that would be almost a year. Holy shit. Wow. Anyway, all right. So anyway, dai-shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts and onlineninjaacademy.com. So this episode, right, for those of you who are listening maybe later, listening to the audio only stuff, we are, what are we, 3 weeks? We have two more episodes until 2024, right? We're recording this in December 16th of 2024. So if you're catching this later, well, some of it might not be timely, but that means that we have two more. So even though we closed down the academy for a little bit of a break, I can catch up with family and like extended family and things like that. We're gonna keep KUDEN running through the holidays. Excuse me, pardon me. So anyway, let's just jump into this quickly. What we're going to be taking a look at today is are some tactics and what one aspect of ninjutsu looks like at the chunin and jonin levels, right? So in a recent episode, we took a look at these three levels of ninjutsu within any ninja clan. And so what I thought would be cool is if we kind of take a look at it from a power perspective, right? But doing things in a way that it's not easy for the other person to perceive. So while I could extend this out a lot farther, I want to keep it fairly quick, just so that folks understand that what we're doing during this one is kind of approaching things from a less than just physical self-defense or martial fighting kind of thing. Anyway, we'll dive into more of that as we go, but these are more deception, manipulation. Not that they can't be used in physical self-defense; they absolutely can. But these are things that can be used to seriously shift your power dynamic, the amount of control you have, and whatnot in different areas of your life, right? Not just physical self-defense and fighting. All right. So let me jump around here. Don't have everything exactly set up. Sorry about that. A little glitch in the system, like mine. So let's, we'll talk about this more when we get back, right? So we'll just officially roll this out.
So, the big question is this. How are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real.
All right, welcome back. Let's officially kick this off. I apologize. I've got some kind of a cold or something going on, but we're going to just keep powering through. So I'm not sure how many of you were around when episode 68 rolled out. It was kind of a relaunch on KUDEN a bunch of years ago now, right? I mean, that would have been 68. We're now at 240. So the format was different before that. I had one of my students, longtime friend, who was in the radio business, actually, still is. And everything was pre-recorded and kind of launched that way and whatnot. And then we took about a year and a half off. His life situation changed and whatnot, and moved all the way across the country. And it was just really, really difficult to make things work with both of us doing things with a 3-hour delay and based on, or 3 hour time zone difference, and based on that original format, it just wasn't easy to go. So it took off about a year and a half, give or take, to figure out what I was going to do with this, right? And so I decided I was just going to do it, right? Just jump in and do it kind of solo. And then at a certain point, James will probably remember which episode he kind of came on board with. But for a bunch of episodes, right, I did it solo. And so what I decided to do with episode 68 was to do kind of a backstory about why, right? Why I do this, why I do what I do the way I do it, right? Because there's lots of folks out there that are teaching martial arts, they're teaching personal development, they're teaching ninjutsu, bujinkan, whatever. And so sometimes I feel like a voice in the wilderness, right? And I hear more often than not from one group, I hear that, you're not doing it right. And from other groups, I hear that's like nobody describes it that way. And that's okay. But just so you don't know, or just so you know, you don't need to go back and listen to episode 68, because if I had a chance to redo that, it probably wouldn't be as long as it is. But I spent quite a bit of time talking about the why, right? And a good part of it was before I even left the home at 18. But the gist of it, the why I do what I do, and therefore why WCI does what it does, or Bujinkan Mori no Tora Dojo, whatever name makes people's they make them feel all warm and fuzzier. I'm not a stickler for names, but I did not have the Leave It to Beaver or the great childhood that a lot of people have. And as a matter of fact, we were just chatting about this in the dojo. I don't know if it was Friday night after class or if it was Saturday. I don't remember. Anyway, but I pointed to one of my black belts and I said, because I know what his life was like. And, he volunteered that, he had spankings and those kind of things that we all had way back in the day. But it was done. It was done out of love and discipline and correction and those kind of things. But it wasn't all out abuse, right? It wasn't. There wasn't a constant sense of fear in the house on a regular basis. So I know what that feels like, and I know there are a lot of folks that are out there that are looking to do this kind of thing, or they've been looking for, whether they would call it ninjutsu. I mean, when I found it, I knew what I was looking for. I didn't have a name to go with it, right? I ran into lots of martial arts, and so therefore the list of names kind of racked up. But specifically, the way all this stuff is tied together, internally, externally, all this kind of thing, I didn't have a name for it. What I did know is that I would know it when I saw it. And for a long time, I jumped around from, again, martial art to martial art and all these different self-defense programs and whatnot. And it's not like I didn't learn anything. I certainly did. But that knowing it when I see it kind of thing never happened until I bumped into this. Again, we're talking, 1980, 81. So very, very early on. Things were not the way they are, but even Hatsumi Sensei knows and has known for a long time, and the senior Japanese instructors have always known that I wasn't doing this as a groupie. I wasn't doing this because it was the cool name, Ninjutsu, Bujinkan, whatever. I was looking for this very specific thing. And when I found it, then I would know. But they also knew that if I found something different tomorrow and it did what I was looking for, it was closer to what I was looking for, then even this, then tomorrow I'd be doing that. Now, that has nothing to do with loyalty or anything like that. It has to do with um, knowing what was needed. And so, in all honesty, this is for everybody, and I may turn a bunch of people off. Who knows? But I didn't come to this out of a love of martial arts. I didn't come at this out of a need for a black belt, or I don't know that I didn't need some kind of validation or things that I didn't get when I was growing up. But what I do know, looking back, is that uh, the environment, and even in school, right? I mean, the home environment um, created a version of me that made me what do they call that? Ripe for the picking when it came to bullies and other people, right? I was just a shit magnet. I had, target on my back, those kind of things. But looking back, um, what I what I was looking for was a way to regain a sense of power. And I don't mean like abusive power or I needed to be in charge of anything. Then I could have never imagined doing this, living the life I'm living and whatnot. I'm not wealthy or anything like that, but this sense of comfort and people, logging on a Monday evening at whatever time it is in your time zone. It was 8 p.m. when we started this here, waiting for the next lesson from me. But I was looking for, again, a sense of personal power, a certain sense of control over myself, my life, my world, not to be in control of other people or to be in a leadership position or anything like that. Just, and we sum it up at Warrior Concepts with three words: confidence, power, and control. Right. And I do what I do because I ended up finding this thing that we all have in common if you're listening to this, right? Whether it's martial arts in general, whatever version you're doing, or you're actually doing ninjutsu, budo taijutsu. But I believe that there's a lot of people out there that have similar backstories or just feel that something is missing and they don't feel like they have the level of control over their lives that they really wish they did, right? Whether it's relationships or whether it's family responsibilities or whether it's in their professional or job life, work life, or whatever, something's missing. And I think some of them are tired of hiding behind a facade, right? Because they know the confidence isn't there, but they tell their stories, right? And they do what they think everybody else is doing, but they know that behind it something's missing. And this art, this system, is just, of course, I'm now biased, right? But excuse me, loaded with so many lessons and different types of training beyond just brute force, physical fighting, self-defense, whatever, right? That that can really benefit folks. And the big thing that astonished me or astounded me, I don't know. Anyway, was just how many of these lessons are, in Hatsumi Sensei's words, not just a good martial arts lesson, not just a good, a Budo lesson, right? Good lessons for life, right? For every aspect of our lives. And that's where I'm coming from with tonight's lesson. Not that we haven't done this in other episodes or anything like that, but what I wanted to do was something that crosses all the boundaries. Excuse me. Crosses all the boundaries, right? So whether it's a life thing, whether it's a warriorship thing, which warriors live in life as well, but whether it's the tiger realm, the dragon realm, whatever symbology or reference points you use for that. This is one of those things where there's many things that come together that produce the kind of person that can, Hatsumi Sensei used to call it attaining a state of zero, which is not nothing, right? It's full potential. And so the person can move in and out of different areas of their lives and engage with different types of people, different types of situations, different types of experiences, and maintain a sense of control, personal power. They're very, very difficult to control, to manipulate, to throw under the bus, right? It's just not easy to break them. And I think a lot of folks are looking for that. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. And so why I do what I do is because I know there's people are out there and I want to be able to help them, right? So we've done that in how many different ways, right? What does that look like, right? So everything from books that I've written to the podcast, the Whiteboard Wednesday, the Ninpo Masterclass program, the full-on inner circle stuff, the platinum training programs and whatnot. Just allow people to engage at the level where they think they are, at least, right? At least in the beginning. And to be able to pass on these things that my teachers, my role models, my mentors passed on to me. And this is how a lineage works, right? This is how Ryuha works. I was listening to kind of a series of lessons that one of my friends and teachers, some of you know, Kasem Zaguri, and he's a personal student, like one of the seniors in Ishizuka Sensei's dojo. And I'd long thought about a lot of these things that long before I listened to this basically it was like a lecture that he was doing. It may have been part of an interview. I don't know, but I've long asserted my belief that ninjutsu is not a real martial art. And if you look at pure ninjutsu, it falls within the martial realm as far as warfare goes. But a lot of ninjutsu schools didn't have fighting tactics. What they had were infiltration things and information gathering and deception and psychological warfare and things like that. But by and large, the stuff that we're looking at, and especially the stuff that a lot of people think that that's all we do, right? Is the basis, right, for understanding Budo and warriorship and whatnot. But there's a lot more, right? So how many different ways can I get this across to folks? So everything from one-on-one training with folks to group coaching in specific things, whether people are doing warriorship on the Mikyo side, which I know sounds strange to a lot of people, but it is the path of the Diamond Thunderbolt Warrior. Or we're doing, self-defense or women's programs or whatever, right? It's to try to get that power, that confidence, that sense of control. If not, for someone to have across all of their life, at least parts of it, until they can start to see that they shouldn't be moving through their lives with everything disconnected, right? Because ultimately there's an individual living that life. There's an individual making decisions, right? Or not, right? And so, and everybody's at a different place, right? Everybody's at a different place. So one of the coolest things that I think I learned through this idea of ninjutsu was, I learned like everybody else did, right? If you just read the history books or whatever, right? 3 different levels or 3 different classes of ninja in every ninja family, clan, whatever, right? We've got the Geinin, we've got the Chunin, we've got the Jonin. But one of the days one of the moments, I remember where I was when I learned that these 3 levels all had 3 pretty much different types of ninjutsu that they practiced, right? And while the self-defense techniques and things like that might be similar, and they are, right? Each one leaned into things differently. It's the same with what I'm going to be covering tonight. And while a Geinin ninja might employ these tactics on a mission, they're like a temporary expedient, right? But in the Chunin level, that coordinator, middleman, manager, whatever, at that level, and at the Jonin level, these things really stand out, especially at the Jonin level, right? And so when I learned that, Hatsumi Sensei was teaching on multiple levels, and right there was basically more than one way to, float a boat, skin a cat, pick a term, right? Everything kind of changed for me. And so when I was listening to, I'm going to call him Professor Zaguri because he is. I was listening to him discuss these things. A lot of things really resonated with me because, again, I've been not just feeling, but thinking along these lines for a long time. And so, when we talk about Budo, people talk about Budo, right? Well, it's martial arts. Budo, martial ways. Yeah. But that word really falls short when we're talking about what we're doing. Are there martial aspects to it? Absolutely. Right. But just, what most people think of as battlefield tactics and fighting and that kind of thing. No. Okay. Even self-defense, right? Terms like that. Goshin Jutsu, right? Goshin. Every martial art has aspects of Goshin Jutsu. Right? I have a student that joined the dojo recently, and he was in one of these schools. And he's not alone, right? There's people all over the place that have these things where it may or may not have a Japanese name to it or whatever, but somewhere in there, there's this studying Goshin Jutsu. Like, okay, what style or what branch or approach is the foundation for that Goshin Jutsu? No, it's Goshin Jutsu. I understand. Okay. Goshin Jutsu. If anybody has any of Hatsumi Sensei's books that were originally written in Japanese, right now I'm thinking of his Hanbu book, Hanbu Jutsu, Tessen Jutsu, Tessen Jutsu, Jite Jutsu, something like that, right? Basis is in the Hanbo Jutsu. In that book, there's a chapter on Goshin Jutsu. Right? Goshin, right? So jutsu, we understand. Jutsu can mean everything from art to skills to methods, that kind of thing. But Goshin, right, the kanji for those, right? So it's not 5 hearts. Goshin means self-protection, personal protection, basically self-defense. Okay? But in the Japanese classical martial arts, Goshin Jutsu points to the practical application outside of the normal context. Okay? So every system, well, that I've ever studied, but I'm going to say for practical purposes for this episode, right? Every school has a form of Goshin Jutsu. It's how their strategies and applications and whatnot are presented. So back to the book that Atsumi Sensei had written, Goshin Jutsu, that section, if anybody has the book, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have the English translation version. That's one of the books I used to learn Japanese. But that whole section is Hatsumi Sensei and one of the master teachers, I think it was Ishizuka Sensei, way back in the day. And they're at a golf course. And they're dressed in golf shoes and polo shirts, sweater maybe, slacks, golfing clothes, right? And Hatsumi Sensei is using golf clubs in place of Hanbo. That's what makes it the Goshin Jutsu side of it, right? Because it's all based on, but it wasn't just doing the kata that were taught in other sections of the book with a golf club, right? It was showing adaptation and flexible use and whatnot, and applying the principles and concepts, right, of the Hanbo with an item that isn't shaped the same. It has certain weaknesses. It has certain additions that a Hanbo doesn't have. Just like switching from a Hanbo to a cane. Well, we don't do cane stuff because that's like they do that in Kung Fu class. Oh, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't follow those kind of that kind of advice from people. A couple of years ago when I broke my back and needed cane as a backup for a little while, right? So the whole idea, a lot of these words, they fall short. And Kasem was also talking about, and I mentioned this earlier on, talking about these lineages, right? And what makes a lineage, right? This thing where, right, I went looking for something. I found this thing, teachers that passed it on to me, and then I'm passing it on to other people. That's what makes a lineage a lineage. That's what makes a ryuha a ryu, right? Ryu, R-Y-U, right? Not the kanji for dragon, right? This ryu implies a flow, right? Like water flowing down a mountainside, okay? If the mountain gets rained on, right, starts as little tricklets, right? These drops start to form and create tricklets, and then those things, get bigger and bigger, turn into streams, turn into bigger streams, turn into almost rivers, right? This torrential fall. That is the implication or what's behind this idea about ryuha. That the longer it lasts, the longer it flows down that mountainside, the more power that ends up behind it. Because more and more people are not just exposed to it and able to use it, but more and more people end up mastering it and then adding perspective and adding their own experiences and whatnot to it, right? And so what he was talking about during this particular section was how people will often say the Gyoko school or the Koto school or whatever, like it was, set up in a plaza, right, or a shopping mall, and you sign up for classes. Okay, even the word dojo, doesn't mean school. Right? These words fall short. It's not a school, right? It's a ryuha. We can use certain words like lineage and whatnot, but it is a flow of energy and lessons and principles and truths and whatnot, that the mountainside isn't a mountain, it's time, right? And so again, these things kind of fall short, right? The word dojo itself, right? The two kanji actually communicate more about what's going on in the place than the place itself. Right? The dojo is a place where enlightenment takes place, where enlightenment happens. Okay, of course, the dojo principle was initially connected to Buddhist practice and Zen and things like that, right? And then the martial arts kind of picked up on it later on in history. We covered that a while back, but I don't remember the dates at the moment. Anyway, so again, back to what we're doing with this episode is we're looking at a broader spectrum of, I'm going to call it personal protection, self-protection, whatever. But again, it doesn't matter if we're discussing things from the perspective of self-defense, right? Physical self-defense, or protecting ourselves from workplace politics or deception and manipulation from family members and friends or whatever it is. Anything that is trying to steal our personal power, take control from us, right? Our ability to control our lives. Give me half a second here. Sorry about that. I did not close my office door and family is coming home. So anyway, but how do we do that? How do we maintain balance? How do we maintain our moral sense, right? Our morals, our ethics, our integrity, while at the same time combating these influences and not becoming the same kind of person, right? There's corruption in the world. Well, can't get ahead unless you, okay, maybe not. So a bunch of episodes ago, I covered some psychological warfare tactics in the ninja's arsenal, right? Especially in the realm of the spirit, so to speak, right? And it is a type of psychological warfare where we discussed two frameworks that are known as the 5 weaknesses and the 5 needs, 5 desires, that kind of thing. Where I believe in that one, though, what we did was we covered it from the perspective of personal development on our side, right? Checking to make sure that we weren't in those ballparks, right? And it's still a good place to start, right? This is all part of the Ninja Seishin Teki, right? And Togakure Ryu. This is the first level of training, right? Personal development, personal clarity, those kind of things, right? The first question to ask is, why am I doing this thing, right? Is it fulfilling a need? Is it helping me overcome a weakness? That kind of thing. What I want to do during this episode is go through these again very, very quickly, right? Because you can find these things out in the wild, right? I'm just going to kind of list them off. But what I want to do is I want to take a look at them from the perspective of using them to gain control, to use them to assert personal power. Now, these are on a much more subtle level, okay? Because the way the ninja used them was in a way that created dependency or um, created a way to um, stop somebody from doing dumbass stuff, or to keep them at bay, or keep them off balance, depending on what was needed, right? Um, Basically, in places and times where physical aggression would actually work against the ninja, like in today's world. Okay, Hatsumi Sensei, a bunch of years ago, said this. He was talking about the way things were going in the world, and he said, we live in a time where people can use words to do serious damage to you, to your reputation, to your life, to your livelihood. But there's no laws against that. There's slander and things like that, but there's very specific uh, legal requirements for you to be able to use these things, right? Slander, libel, depending on whether it's spoken or it's in print, at least here in the U.S. anyway. But if you were to hit them, take a hold of them, you're going to jail, because there are way more laws for assault and those kind of things than there are for these people who do serious damage, right? With their words, with their emotions, with their manipulation, those kind of things. And so he said, we really live in a troublesome time when you can't teach someone a lesson who seriously deserves one. And he was talking about the physical kind of lesson. But here's where ninjutsu steps in, and here's where this goes far beyond just doing Budo Taijutsu or even Ninpo Taijutsu, right? Although Ninpo Taijutsu, see, again, people, as soon as they hear Taijutsu, they start thinking about fighting techniques. They start thinking about self-defense techniques, okay? Taijutsu means body skills, body art, right? Methods of using the body, which in the ninja's realm, that's could be disguise and impersonation. It could be entering skills. It could be just, ukemi. There's a whole section in the Tsugakure to use Gotonpo or Tonko no Jutsu, the escape and concealment arts. That is, the category itself is translated as entertainment arts or skills of the entertainer, and it fits into disguise and impersonation and things like that. But it's how to use your body in ways that communicate certain things. Okay, come on, all that stuff falls into there, but people have to drop the belief that kamae is the same as a martial arts stance. Okay, kamae is a total person posture. There's kamae of the mind, there's kamae of the heart, there's kamae of the body, right? Kamae are not stances. Okay, kamae are kamae, dachi or dachi. Okay? Dachi, stances, they're named for the position of the legs more often than not, right? And they're generally seen across martial arts who use dachi as places to defend and or launch attacks from. They're like cannon, right? And kamae have an aspect of dachi, but they go way beyond that. Okay? One way to look at kamae is the body's outward manifestation of what's going on inside the head and the heart. Okay? Or for a ninja, right? The body manifesting the masking or the concealment of what we don't want them to know that's going on in the head and the heart. So, but again, like I said, a lot of these things fall short. But here we are, right? And so, 21st century U.S., probably most countries, right? Somebody slanders your name, somebody, gets you fired at work or whatever. Nothing's going to happen to them, right? If you punch them in the mouth, then you're the one that's in trouble. Okay. So here we have this cool thing where we can assert power. We can attack, right? We can manipulate. We can influence, right? And we can do what needs to be done better than people who think they're good at manipulation, people who think they're good at influence, people who think they have power. Okay? All we have to do is study it. There's a very small percentage of people who are going to do that because, one, they can't get their head out of the physical combat side of things. Two, they believe that's not them, or their beliefs about themselves, the world, the way things work and all that. It's just too great of an influence for them to believe that they can do anything like this. Or if I get caught, wait, you want to damage human bodies, but you're worried about getting caught in influencing things in a way where your life is better and more secure, and you can attract the kind of people that you want to be around and repel the kind of people that you don't want to be around. I might buy that one, but what I buy more often, and because I've seen it more often, is this is a lot of work. This requires aptitude, a level of intelligence that somebody can apply it. Because the guy that is running around going, martial arts is my life, right? And just everything's an offense, and they want to like put the dukes up, and they want to fight and whatever. Probably not. Okay, but it's there, right? And the more of these we can learn, the better we can make our lives. Okay. And so, again, I'm going to very, very quickly go through these things, and they're all based on the Godai 5 elements. I may or may not mention, I probably will, because I find it a very convenient and expedient framework to use. But we'll go through them just very, very quickly, right? The 5 weaknesses, okay? 5 needs that people have. And so I'll go through them very, very quickly, but that's where the lesson begins, because there's a whole skill set for being able to assess and know what somebody's weaknesses or needs are, and not necessarily the ones that it might look like, right? And how do we go about assessing these, and what are the tells that people have? And then we're going to go down the rabbit hole. We're going to take a look at how a chunin ninja, the coordinator, the middleman, whatever, the one who assigns missions to the genin to go out and do their thing. I'll talk about how genin would use this quickly, but I think I probably wrapped it up in a sentence or two already. But how a chunin would do it, but then also how a jonin would use these things. And then there's a couple of other layers that I want to kind of unwrap, including some suggestions for making this work. Okay. And there's one or two other skill areas that I've already mentioned one, but they have to be brought into play. Otherwise, we will become the corrupt abuser that we are screaming at the world that all this stuff is out there, right? There's too much corruption. There's too much, too much manipulation, too much bullshit, whatever. You know, it's really easy to fall into that if we don't have a solid foundation in a couple of other areas. All right. Anyway, I've already talked longer than I normally do. James, who do we have on? Who's on with us? I see numbers go up. I see numbers go down. Who's on with us? And pardon me if I seem a little bit flat tonight. Besides this cold, I've been trying to get rid of a major headache. I'm trying to keep everything in a place where I can do the show, do the episode. But I'm splitting energy reserves at the moment to make this happen. Anyway, James, who's on?
Looks like Jared, Dave, Merrill, Greg from Australia,
Awesome.
Max, Jimmy.
Cool beats. I really appreciate when you guys are on. I mean, there's been several episodes way back in the day that I did, not even counting the recorded ones, because we went into a radio studio or a recording studio, recorded those things, and just put them out in the wild. Had no idea how many people were listening or when, and we can get the count in some of the podcast directories and whatnot. Don't know if those are same person watching it that many times, or James knows how this stuff works more now, and there's more information available. But so anyway, any questions or comments that came along with the sign-ins or the highs and the hays and the hoes and the...
Well, Dave said Kasem Sensei is great. I had the fortune to participate in one of his seminars when I was stationed in Italy. A deep well of knowledge.
Yeah, and his doctorate in university kind of stuff, right? His doctorate is in, I think it's Japanese culture and like martial arts stuff. I mean, he has studied Mikyo documents, like secret things where if he didn't know how to read, write, speak Japanese, kanji, all that, a lot of the stuff just kind of falls apart. Because not everything in Budo and not everything in Mikyo is written out in plain language. Right? People think that if I just had the scrolls, I'd have everything. No, you wouldn't. Okay. It's kind of like having the Bansen Shukai or the Shininki, right? Or there's another one that's out there, but historically there's no definitive connection to those books where we can definitively say that the writer actually practiced the arts. Okay, it's kind of like what was his name? The guy that wrote the Hagakure. No, that one might be historical. There's one that wrote things about the samurai, and this is where the general things that are passed around on the internet about the 7 or 8 characteristics of a samurai. You guys have all seen these things. There's posters. Somebody just got me one for Christmas last year. It has these things laid out on them. He was a university professor, academic kind of person, right? He's not even historically connected to a samurai family, right? Wrote a book, okay? And so why would people like that write books? Well, they might have been hired to write the book by people who did know. And so they were there more like a scribe to catalog things. They might have needed to make some money. Okay. They might have needed to elevate themselves in Japanese society. It's often how or why soke ships. This pisses people off, but history is history, right? Um, why soke ships were given, right? Takamatsu Sensei did that several times. Gave friends soke ship of Togakure, Ryu, or some lineage or whatever, right? Knowing that they weren't going to use it, they weren't going to go out and hang up a shingle and open up a martial arts school, but by them now being able to list their name and write out soke of da, 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 it gave them clout that they didn't have before, right? It gave them a position, a higher position in life, because they had this title bestowed upon them by, right, somebody in the lineage. Okay. So when people get pissed off because over what McDojos or that person got rank and whatever, right? It's been happening for a long time, right? And the more we need for things to stay the same, the more we want to crystallize things, the more stuck we are. It runs completely contrary to the adaptability, flexibility that lies at the heart of ninjutsu, right? The point is, we can't do anything about these things that are happening, but we have absolute control over how we handle them, how we manipulate, or how we maneuver in spite of them. Ninjutsu, nin, endurance, right? Anybody can endure when everything's going well. Are you really enduring if you force everything to be going your way? Well, that's not endurance. I mean, maybe like forcing everybody and trying to stay in a role as a dictator without somebody coming along and shooting you in the face. That might be time consuming and persevering and enduring, right? It's kind of like, freedom of speech. You don't need freedom of speech, or you don't need that right, or you don't need it when what's being said is approved of. That right or that guarantee is only, I'm speaking for those of us in the US, because a lot of constitutions don't have it. Sometimes it's implied, whatever. It only matters when somebody's saying something you don't like. So anyway, we'll go through these. I've got an agenda to move down through, bring up my notes and make sure that I stay on track. Okay, so this idea of this control, right, and this development or gaining of, like I said, confidence, power, control, those kind of things, right? This is gonna run through the week as I've been doing lately. Okay, so this is the personal development life aspect, right? KUDEN, which also includes Shinden. And then on Wednesday, when we do Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, we'll be taking a look at this from the perspective of actually, how do we, what are some things we can do, or how do we apply this in a combat scenario, right? Again, from a strategic, tactical standpoint. And then the master class this week will be when I'm teaching techniques and whatnot to show these things in action. That being said, right, the Academy, again, for those of you listening in the future, right, after the 2025 New Year rolls in, this isn't going to matter much. But for those of you who are local or regional, or then in the NIMPO Masterclass, or any of the programs like that, we have a schedule shift because of the holidays. The holidays this year fall on Wednesdays, which anyway. So, like I said, I'm taking some time off between the Christmas and New Year time slot, get some other stuff, gets caught up on some things, but to visit family and whatnot. So Thursday of this week, the 19th of December 2024, is the last day for classes at the Academy. And then we have an end of the year Christmas party on Friday, the 20th. So we always have to do it right before the holiday. And then beginning the 21st all the way through. And I apologize to people that I tossed these numbers out to, or these dates out to. I think last week I was in error. Right. So because we already put it out in the newsletter, and I don't want people confused by seeing different things in different places. So I said that we were closed, and then we would pick up things on Monday the 6th, but we're not doing that because the very next weekend is our Daikomyosai weekend, and so that would affect class availability for students and whatnot that aren't going to Daikomyosai and all that. So we're actually back in on Friday the 3rd. So I know that would be a Friday class and then the Saturday morning classes, but at least it puts the Friday and Saturday classes in, and we won't be skipping 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row. So anyway, last classes are the 19th. So what would normally be our Friday ninjutsu masterclass, our virtual training on this stuff this week, would normally be on Friday at 6 p.m. This week, it's going to be on Thursday at 6 p.m. Right, so that's our last classes for the year. That's normally an all ranks class, but that's all the black belts and the Shinobi Kai people, my inner circle guys, people who normally sign up for the Friday master class, all that kind of stuff. It's same time slot, but we're going to back it up a day because we're having a Christmas party on Friday. Anyway, so but we're still going to run everything, but that day, that class, kind of a freebie for everybody, that I'll be teaching those techniques. So let's see what I put down here for this. Okay, so these 5 weaknesses and these 5 needs, this type, right? Because when I say psychological warfare, people might think, I don't know, torture and all that kind of stuff. But this is within the psycho-emotional realm of the spirit, right? Remember, we're talking about 3 different levels of training. And in ninjutsu, just like in a lot of classical martial arts, whether they were ninjutsu or not, there's 3 avenues of transmission, right? There's the taiden, which is the body transmission. And so that's the teacher demonstrates things with his or her body, and you see it and try to work it out with your body. Okay. And then there's the KUDEN, which is what this is named after, right? Which is the knowledge aspect. So it's the teacher, there's lectures or discussions, philosophical kind of things, and whatnot, so that you understand the art, you understand so some of these things are connected to the taiden, like why this works this way and whatever. But a lot of these things start to branch out into life and how a warrior carries him or herself, how we apply the principles and concepts off the battlefield, those kind of things, right? And then the shinden is the heart-to-heart, heart transmission, where the teacher is in more of a parental role with the student, teaching them or helping them to see new ways of doing things, different ways of thinking or engaging, right? Where compassion, where mercy, I'm going to be talking about that a little bit during this episode, kind of fit in, and how it's not weakness, right? It actually requires a deep level of assessment and wisdom, those kind of things, right? So anyway, but I learned these things early in my training, right? And I learned them for not only influencing someone's thoughts, words, actions, those kind of things, but also in creating situations where you're developing or creating dependency and control over over an attacker, right? Over enemy, opponent, attacker. Pick your favorite word. Okay. So what I want to do with this is I also want to be covering, and I've already talked about it a little bit, this need for more subtle skills, right? And so some of these things, if you've been around for a while, have been around with me for a while, or been training, just even in supportive study areas that are connected to what we're doing, but they're more modern as sciences or study and research areas and whatnot, like NLP, neuro linguistic programming, facial micro expression reading, right? Where you're learning how to read. Facial micro expressions are muscle combinations, right? When the muscles fire, a lot of these you have no conscious control over, which is where one of these things come in. But learning how to read those for truth, to be able to discern when somebody's lying. You may not know what they're lying about, but you'll know that they're lying. And something called masking, right? Masking is where they're trying to mask truth or lie. Sometimes you see this when you play certain types of trivia games and whatnot, where somebody's supposed to be bluffing or whatever, but people do this all the time. Okay. But there are these signs and signals. Some of the muscles that fire in these combinations, some you do have conscious level control over. Others you have no conscious level control. They fire, and in very specific combinations, when someone is communicating, right? So back in the day, they didn't have these kind of things, but in today's world, we do, and you could take it even farther, and you don't have to wait for somebody to be teaching a ninjutsu lesson about it, right? But the ninja were very, very skilled, and again, higher level. This is very advanced stuff. It's easy to read in words in books. Understanding it and putting it into practice so that it works for you and works for you well, so that you are in control. You are maintaining the control of things. It's very, very different. Okay. But also in there are things like body language, personality quirks, those kind of things, right? Being able to even know what somebody uses as, out of all the five senses that we have, six with Shita or mind, what is the primary sense receptor that they process their world with? Okay. Just being able to listen for those things so that you can either develop rapport, right, and connect with somebody for positive or negative reasons, right? Or you can call them out on bullshit, and it's not guesswork, right? Okay. So again, that's where we're going. And then again, Wednesday, we're going to be going into flipping this to a more tactical, strategic combat kind of thing, where we're looking at ways to keep an opponent off balance, hiding our true intentions, that kind of thing, so we don't give things away, creating false openings, right? Controlling their perceptions, that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, and let's see, what else do I have here? Okay, so the approach that we're looking at is one of strategic power and subtle influence and control without the, call them the target, right, of our control and manipulation, right, without them knowing that they're being controlled, right? So that's why if you saw the emails or the slide that I made or whatever, right, that's why we called this the shadow tactician, right? Because tactics are things that you do to make the execution and application of your techniques, whatever they are, work faster, better, easier. Okay. And then shadow, they don't know that you're doing it. Okay? A lot of people have a hell of a time being a shadow. I'm in a martial art that has to do with shadows, but I have to be the guy running around going, I did that. That was me. Kicked his ass. Not very much of a shadow. Anyway, so anyway, again, like I said, it'll tie into Whiteboard Wednesday and normally called Friday Masterclass, but this week it'll be a Thursday. So don't forget. Again, we'll tie this into tune in and join in and all that. So let's do this first. Let me just scroll here. All right, so let's just run through these things very, very quickly. So if you have something that you can write with, that's fine. I will be laying these things out in ascending order as far as the Godai 5 elements go. So earth, water, fire, wind, void. No, it is not earth, metal, water, wood, fire. That's the Gogyo, right? That's a different system. They are connected in Mikyo, or anybody that's going through Mikyo should be able to see that the Godai are reflected as the Taizokai mandala, and the Gogyo is reflected as the Kongokai mandala. The Godai is the way energy and elements manifest. Sorry, they show up, so they're easy to use for classifying and categorizing things. The Gogyo is the life and interactions between these things. Okay, so anyway, very, very quickly, right? So let's do the weaknesses first, right? 5 weaknesses. So from the earth realm, what we have is laziness, okay? And again, it's complacency, right? They don't want to do very much, okay? A lot of people will only become involved in anything, work, play, relationships, whatever, only so much as they are forced to do, compelled to do, or feel compelled or forced to do. Okay. My personal students have heard me say this more often than not, that most people do just enough to not most people in this realm that have this thing going on, just enough to not get fired, just enough to not lose the boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, just enough. Okay. And James, was you and I that were talking about this last week? There was somebody that, it was somebody I interacted with at a restaurant, I think, and it was obvious that they didn't want to be there, right? And it was the way they were treating customers, and I get it. We all have bad days, okay? So don't be in customer service. Don't be in a forward-facing position, right? Oh, might as well take it a step farther so we don't screw around with our coworkers, right? Don't work in a job that you have to interact with people. Well, okay, maybe that's not exactly possible. However, why didn't this person just go and fill out paperwork to collect welfare? Probably because There's something on the other list that makes them concerned about what other people would think about them if they took that route. So this is where things like cognitive dissonance come in, and why people don't have more control than they have, or life isn't going the way they want it to go, or whatever, is that we have these conflicting belief systems uh, or ways of doing things that they don't work together. And they don't we used to say, they didn't jive, right? They don't connect, right? So like in the security world, right? Some guards only make like a cursory search, right? They'll just go by, check it off, that kind of thing. A lot of, this isn't just people. Companies work this way too, right? We're mandated by OSHA to do certain types of training. Great. Okay, so we're going to do the minimum necessary to get by, which is why, from my realm, right, in the workplace violence training realm, I can only speak to the 20-30% of companies that actually have something in place, right? But all but 2 to 3% of them, what they have are slide presentations, or they're playing a 6-minute run, hide, fight video that some police department in Texas made a decade or two ago, or whatever. So they can, as long as you were present for it, you could have been jacking your jaw to the guy next to you, or going through your gear or whatever you have to get ready for work. And this is when they're going to play it. They just want to be able to check off that box that, yep, you went through the training. So did they learn anything? Well, I don't know, but they were there, and we had the training. And this isn't just a personal thing, right? But and you can study history and stuff in recent wars and whatnot. There, because somebody's either overly confident, or they're just biding their time, right? They're in a position of authority, whatever it is, or they're there used to be a character in World War II. It was a cartoon character they used to convey a lot of security things. There was Private Snafu. If anybody knows Snafu, as a matter of fact, when I was stationed in South Korea as a military policeman, we had a softball team, a bunch of softball teams that were put together, and our uniforms were white, green, and yellow, which are the colors for military police corps. But we had the MP thing on our thing, but our names were on our jersey, but we also had this snafu. So if you know what that means, then you're probably already smiling. For those of you who don't know what that means, all right, snafu stands for situation normal, all effed up. Okay? I'm not going to use certain words and certain, there's something I'm going to be doing during this episode that I have to be cautious with, because the platforms can now translate the spoken word and whatnot. They used to only be able to do it with text. And I don't want this deplatformed, so that we've got to find another home or another way to do things. So, but yeah, so there, if somebody has this thing, I don't care if it's, your old brother or your roommate, your significant other, whatever, right? What you can do with folks like this is offer to do the work, right? And then when they're taking the credit for it, right? Because they're on the team, right? When they're taking the credit for it, you can at that point say, yeah, we're going to have Bob. He'll explain how we put it all together. Go ahead, Bob. It's all yours. Okay. So because these folks like to do minimum, and if they're a part of teams and whatnot, still get the glory. Okay. But there's been some really cool tactics across the years or whatever. But um, this tends to get, it just gets in the way after a while, right? Because they think they're buying time. They think that they are, they're not getting caught up on all that stuff, right? Just, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this thing over here. But things end up backing up on them, right? So when somebody's lazy, you can either give them the time, or what you can do is you can do just the opposite, right? You can overwhelm them to where they quit, or they go into obvious avoidance mode, right? Or they have to figure it out, right? Regardless of what anybody thinks about the current politics in the States, this works in companies as well. If you want to thin the herd, but not have people go into attack mode, what you do is you just put a policy in place, right? You don't go in and go, hey, we're shutting your department down. What you do is you put a policy in place that this group is not going to want to comply with, and so they'll just voluntarily quit. Okay. There's been companies where they've thinned out a third of their workforce just by saying, okay, I know you guys were working from home during COVID and all that, but you know what? You need to come back into the office. We're paying for this freaking real estate. We're paying to keep the lights on and the water and all that. And it's already been proven that people who work from home do at best 60% of what they would normally do in the office. So we're not paying for nothing. You will work in the office for, 5 days a week, 40 hours, right? 8 hours a day. And 30% quit. Okay. And then you just do it by attrition. But if you make someone voluntarily make a decision instead of applying force, overt force, right, then you don't have a problem with, and this is where the ninja excels, especially the jonin. You don't have a problem with revenge or vengeance in any sort, because it was their idea. I mean, they may, say, well, I quit because they made it, you had to do this and right? But it's not like somebody walked up to them and said, you're gone. Okay. Because that's a direct affront. Okay. So anyway, let me flash through these things here pretty quickly. Right. So that's related to the earth realm. To the water realm is anger. Right. A lot of people are just way too quick, right, to jump to this, right? And we all know how volatile of an emotion anger is. So the problem with anger is that it doesn't allow us to think with the left brain, right, with the intellect, nearly as well, right? And and the more angry, the more enraged they are, okay? And people have hot buttons, right? And they're always telling you what they are, okay? This pisses me off, that, right? I have one, right? That's disrespect, okay? I can control it for the most part, but there are certain levels of disrespect that even so I'm not impervious to these things, right? But anger, right? So if I can induce somebody to anger, right? His actions are going to be more irrational, right? His thinking is going to be more irrational, even if it's being calm when they're pissed off, right? I have somebody in my life that they don't say it so much anymore because I think they've just gotten used to it, that You know, like with this, the contractor that stole just under $130,000 of the 186 that he received to help restore our home. I've been very calm, and I mean, I tell the story, but very calm about it, where other people are just, you know, talking about all the things that they would love to do to this person, and nobody gets to know what kind of thoughts I have in that direction. But if you have somebody that's just absolutely enraged, they want to fight you, they want to teach you a lesson or whatever, and they're facing somebody who's just calm, a slight smile on their face, whatever, right? What ends up happening is this person, more often than not, just gets more angry, right? And what ends up happening is that anger, it makes it so that they don't see things so clearly, right? They don't think strategically, right? I know they think they are, but they're not, right? And so they become more imperative. They become more insistent. They miss things that they should be paying attention to, and they just make more mistakes. Okay. So anyway, there's a lot more that we could cover on him. I've done it in the past. Who knows? Maybe sometime coming up here, we'll do a full program on these things itself. But either way, okay. So that's from the water realm. From the fire realm, what we have is fear. Right. I know a lot of people would think, aggression and all that kind of stuff. But fear is the opposite of direct committed action. Fear, there is a butt ton of energy going on. The problem is that it's not focused. It's all over the place. Okay. Sometimes a person, we call it fight, flight, or freeze. Right. So it could make somebody flail and jump into that kind of thing. And again, I was talking about this earlier when we're reading somebody, really reading them and not just guessing. Well, I mean, this guy's obviously wants to fight, so he's controlled by the anger weakness or whatever. Maybe not. Okay. Maybe he's doing it because he's afraid that if he looks bad, or if he doesn't act, or he's going to lose something, or he's going to gain something he doesn't want. Okay? All of those things are fear things, right? But in terror, many people, again, they overlook possibilities, obvious possibilities, right? Again, in self-defense, in everyday things, people that, they're afraid they're going to lose their job, right? Will be so wrapped up in that one possibility that they miss the announcement that there are these other job opportunities that are open on a first come, first served basis. And so, as long as you qualify for it, you can have one, right? They might completely miss that. Or in their fear and attachment that they're not going to have what they want, or they're going to lose something they think should be a forever thing, or they're afraid that they're going to have to put up with something that they don't want to have to put up with. They end up making a bigger, can make a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing, right? But folks that truly have this weakness, right? Especially if they're kind of on the meek side, low self-confidence, they're more introvert, less extroverted, kind of thing, right? These people are easily defeated by intimidation tactics, right? Again, a lot of people think when we talk about the fire element that it's this explosive, go get 'em kind of thing, but that would at least be a direction or a directed use of energy, right? In this case, it's all over the place, right? So the problem here is, especially with the meek, it's a sense of low self-confidence, right? And so they're getting in their own way, right? Or they go into escape mode and they avoid, right, conflict, those kind of things, or how will that make me feel, or not how will it make me feel, how will it make me look, right? That mentioned that earlier with that hostess that was kind of not really helping my wife and I at that restaurant. From the wind realm, weakness is sympathy. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that sympathy is bad. Okay. But when it's exaggerated, right? When it's too much, right? Everything is, we have to accept everything. We have to, accept that it's that person's right to do whatever. And see, this is one of those tricky things because from a legal standpoint, and for those, I'm speaking specifically to those in the U.S. because I can't speak to anybody else's constitution. I don't mean their well-being. I mean a legal document. There are specific rights that are laid out in our federal laws, right? Title 40 lays out rights and responsibilities, right, for U.S. citizens. But a lot of people are using the word right. It's my right to. It's my whatever. Okay, that are subjective and agenda driven, and there's no legal, moral, or ethical basis behind it, other than that's what that person wants. But people that are high on the agreeability scale, psychology, and have this exaggerated level of within their personality, right? Overly sympathetic, soft-hearted, evade or avoid conflict. They can be easily manipulated by these people because what all that's needed is that you appeal to their tenderness. You appeal to their sense or need to alleviate everybody's pain, to be the helpful one, to stand on the side of right, because people would suffer if they weren't allowed to do what they want to do. Okay. It all sounds good, but without clarity and without understanding and without the wisdom necessary to do a lot of these things, the person's going to have a problem. But this episode, we're talking about exploiting it. So if we see ourselves in it, that's for a later time when you're working on personal development. For now, it's being able to read these kind of things, because what people will often do who have a conflicting belief system, okay? Or for instance, my own, right? I absolutely believe that you have the right to believe anything you want about yourself, about others, or whatever. But I am under no legal, moral, or ethical obligation to believe the right or that thing that you are calling a right itself, or that belief. I don't have to believe the belief. It's yours. Right? But people are pushing that. I believe this to be true, so therefore you must. Otherwise, you're fill in the blank with whatever name calling you want to fill in, which is really an adolescent BS tactic, right? So, what the ninja would often do, and what we can do, right, is apply to that by appearing weak, or by appearing to be oppressed, or the boss is out to get me, or whatever. And this is how you can get allies. You can get, I mean, just look, it's out there, right? All of these things are out there. And then from the void realm, we have vanity. Okay. This is very, very complex. Okay. So void is about thinking and creativity and those kind of things, right? So this is where the void thing comes in. But vanity is really centered around somebody who is overly confident, right? They believe that they have more than what they do. Okay. Somebody who's vain when it comes to looks, right? Will pour a lot of effort and energy into that and ignore the fact that time and age will take that all away from them. Okay. So they're easily manipulated to give up money, to give up, to suffer through certain procedures and things to look good, right? For those who see themselves and have a sense of self-importance, right? I'm smarter than everybody else here, or I'm better than everybody else here, so I should be the leader, right? They will go through a lot, right, to get that position, but they're also easily conned, right? Because this person is also looking to maintain or to get that thing. So, and because they want it quickly, they will they'll fall for any con where they're going to be getting more with less effort or for less money or whatever. Okay. But the vain also have an issue with anybody who does not agree with them, does not agree with their position, does not fawn over their looks or their muscles or whatever it is that they're doing. Right? For those in Mikyo, the vanity on an overt side is typically associated with the skanda of form. Right? These people are caught up with appearances and what things look like and their position in the hierarchy and those kind of things. Right? So, but if you don't apply them properly, or you don't give them their due attention, right? Then they'll slip, and right then there's hostility and resentment and all kinds of crap that goes on. Right. Anyway, so any kind of the manipulation that would be used for folks like this is ego gratification, prestige, appearance, and it's not that these things can't be done or can be done or whatever. What a lot of folks have a problem with in applying these or in gaining more influence or power or control over their lives is because we all see ourselves as something very specific, and I'm not going to stoop to that, or I'm not going to play their freaking games. I'm not going to lie to them. I'm not going to feign friendship with that dickhead over there. No, I'm not doing it. Okay. Okay. Well, then you're not getting anything from them that you might need. You're also not establishing a dominant position where they can't bring you down, right? So the person who's has a less of a problem with changing or adapting, they're the ones that are frustrated more often than anybody else is. Okay, but again, right, manipulation on this kind of person is we're gonna throw things like flattery and even signs of love and respect and whatever, right? Because that brings that person closer to you, right? Um, here's a for instance that a lot of our students at the dojo, especially the youth students and even the parents, have a problem getting their head wrapped around. We have a little card. It's actually on the back of a brochure as well. It's 12 steps for beating a bully without fighting. Number 12 is if everything else fails and they're coming at you, take up a martial arts position, right? Make them fear physical pain or whatever. But the other 11 aren't physical in nature. And one of them, the one that really throws people off, is make friends with the bully. And so they miss this. Well, this guy is, isn't he going to hurt me? And actually the opposite is true. In most cases, friends of the bully take less abuse than that bully rains out to anybody else. But here's the tactic, right? By making friends with the bully, I insert myself into their world. I agree with them. I laugh on those kind of things, right? But that is the greatest position that I have for influencing their thoughts and actions. Way more than as the target or the victim. Way more than an authority figure. Way more than a friend or family member who's trying to help them be better. They don't want to fucking be better. There's a reason that people do what we do, right? It provides us with benefits. It allows us to avoid things we don't want to have to do, okay? So, but as a close friend, I have their ear, right? And I have a chance to get him to change or just do it less. Okay. Hey, I'm going to go. Yeah, I can't, man. I've got some homework I got to get finished or whatever. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun to me today. Okay. The hard part, as far as a skill set goes, is becoming a friend. That has to do with establishing rapport, right? So if we understand that where he is, right? And see, this is where things get weird, because the bully can express anger. Well, does that make him, is that weakness an anger thing? No. The anger as a weakness, right? Because a lot of people think that like Buddhist and enlightened people or whatever never get angry. No, it's not self-centered anger. Anger as a weakness is when the person believes that whatever their belief system is about things being, there's only one way or whatever. It's when they're quick to anger, when things don't go their way. It could be, they're afraid, but the weakness isn't fear. The fear triggers the anger. The vanity and not getting their due attention triggers the anger, that kind of thing, right? So are they vain? It's not so cut and dry with all of these. Many people have more than one. Some people have 3, 4, 5 of these. Okay. Anyway, so the point is, I'm just kind of throwing these things out there, and then the study is, how does somebody express this, and then how can they be controlled or manipulated, right? I controlled a science teacher in school who was just cracked a whip, was like, the class either feared him or hated him. And I'm pretty sure the people that feared him hated him as well. Okay. But he never treated me the same way. And it wasn't because I sucked up. Okay. Although, why would you not, if that got the danger away from you? Well, he's a real suck up. There's a reason the teacher likes him. I don't know that the teacher liked me, but the teacher's anger came from a sense of, he'd been doing it for a long time. His name was Mr. Rocky. And he looked like a palooka as well. I think he was the coach of the wrestling team. Anyway, just barking all the time. And it just came from years of being in an occupation that paid the bills. But that occupation put him in rooms full of people within certain age ranges that didn't give a flying stuff. They didn't care. Okay. And so he had to be there. They had to be there. And he wasn't putting up with shit in his room, in his classroom. So at the end of every class, not every class, but a lot of classes, I would walk up and ask a question about something that was covered in class, whether I understood it or not, because I wanted clarity. And from the very first time that I did it, I realized that his tone softened and he felt like he was actually talking to a student who wanted to learn and he wasn't wasting his time. And everything changed. But I had to ferret that out. Now, that was long before ninjutsu, long before. That was a skill set that I had to develop to not have to face the wrath of an angry stepfather who came home, and then mom, who was just a mouth with legs, would tell him everything that we did throughout the day. And so he went through a long, grueling day at work, already not liking the family he had, I believe. And then coming home and, had to put up with that shit. But anyway. All right. So, James, any questions or comments about any of those? Anything pop up along the way? Anybody's with stories or how they've used certain things?
No, sir. I don't see anything.
All right. Well, you guys can certainly pop that stuff in if you recognize any of these things. It's not that I don't care about it, right? During this episode, the focus is on learning how to read and identify people who have these weaknesses, or I'm about to cover the needs, and how they can be influenced. Call it manipulation, call it whatever you want, to where, right, even if they're in an authority position, right, you have some control. You have the trick with these things in our everyday lives is to regain this balance and this the power and confidence and whatnot that we really want to have in our lives, right? We feel in certain situations and around certain people, right? I used to have an ex or two that I just didn't want to have to deal with them. They were just like energy suckers and all that. And I always felt like they were just going to manipulate and whatever. One would just yell and whatever, like, they believed that if they were loudest, then they were right. And if the other person capitulated, well, then they were definitely right. Okay. And they were definitely, their weakness was and still is anger. So when they pull that stuff, I just give it a little bit of a pause. I don't argue with them. Okay? I don't yell back. I don't play that game. Right. And when they're doing it, very often I'll just go, okay, wait, stop. All of that, I understand you're upset, but all of that doesn't help with anything. I need to know what you need or want at the moment so I can tell you whether or not I can do it. So just give me the information. And they'll still yell and whatnot to give me the information, but it's going to get cut short. All right, I can do this, this, and this. Yeah, but no. I can do this, this, and this. That's it. Okay? My schedule doesn't allow for the other things. Sorry, I can't do that day. Okay? We either have control over our lives, and I understand feeling like If I don't, they'll be pissed at me. Okay, fantastic. But then being pissed off, how is it your fault? Other than you didn't give them what they wanted. Okay. If I make a decision to give this person what they want, and it's not a strategic decision, it's a fear-based decision. This is just going to be the easiest. That's a laziness decision, right? It's a avoidance of conflict decision. That's a fear, right? These kind of things, right? To make myself look good. That's a vanity. Of course, we can all do whatever we want. We design our lives to the power of our choices. But it is my belief. It is several teachers that I've worked with believe. As a matter of fact, I can't think of one that it wasn't. Right? I cannot complain about or blame anybody else for my loss of control, lack of personal power, when I did it. I went and okay. So I'll give you some questions and some things to do to work on later as we go through these things. But anyway, let's jump into the 5 needs. Right. So, in addition to taking advantage of, capitalizing on, whatever you want to call it, right, and adversaries and opponents' emotional weaknesses, we can target their needs, and these are fundamental needs, right? These are needs that they believe are required for their best experience of life, we'll call it. Okay, this is a core kind of thing. Okay, but they can also be addictions. Okay, they can also be they're ultimately weaknesses as well. And when we split these things between weaknesses and needs, weaknesses tend to be more on the emotional side. The needs are more, to me, they're more on the intellectual side. Okay. So, but either way, we're doing the same thing. We are either strategically or tactically giving them what they need and feeding it. Like somebody with anger. Okay. You want to do that person in. Okay. Know what their hot buttons are and trigger them around people that have control over them, or you influence who wants to be around them for how long. And right. So if I want to get somebody fired, if I want to get somebody kicked out of a group or organization, if I want to get somebody to miss out on an opportunity with a partnership or something like that, and their weakness is anger, then I just wait until I see this person coming. Maybe we're waiting for a meeting or something like that, and the person hasn't walked in yet, or they just coming into that realm, but they're not quite there yet. And whatever that person's hot button is that I want to undermine, that I'm going to push that at that moment. And so they'll flare, and then this person will come into the area, and either they won't see it, the target, my target, won't see them coming. So I push the button, ta-da, how dare. So this person's experience now is, ooh, do I want somebody like that on my team? Do I want whatever, right? And especially if when they're doing it, right, I look over at the influencer. I look over and for those of you on audio only, I'm gonna make I don't know what to tell you face. Okay, but if I look over and go, right, like they're like this all the time, sorry, kind of thing, right? It's going to have an even bigger effect, right? Or the person may have not got it yet. I hit something that's really, really hard, but they know they can't flare just yet. They'd like to tell me where the bear defecates in the buckwheat or what. They can't. Okay. I just affected their facial expressions, their body language cues, their vocal tone, and all that throughout this entire meeting. There will be an edge because it's stuck. Okay. From my perspective, well, actually, all of them are really, really easy to manipulate, right? But the ones that I can get like really quickly, okay, is anger and lazy. Okay. Sympathy comes in a little bit farther down, but yeah. And depending on the experience or the situation, fear can be hit pretty good too. But the lazy and the ones who go to anger quickly because they're pissed off at the world, their life experience hasn't been what they think it is. Everybody's out to get them, whatever. Oh, shit. Right? And they bark, right? If they could bark on a text-based platform like Facebook, or they weren't so damn lazy that they wouldn't just shoot a video of themselves telling you where to fucking, right, and then post it, right, or send you a DM or something like that, right? They would do that too. Okay, but you can always tell because one, they leave with an opinion. Two, you can't disagree with the opinion, whatever, right? And again, some of these folks, and some folks, man, they've got so many of them that you can pick and choose. Okay, there's a couple of folks that like to follow along with what we do, but I hit too many buttons. Then they go away for a while, and then they'll comment on something, and then whatever. Okay, so if at this point they don't know that I'm keeping them at more than arm's reach, then they're not paying attention. But because they're easy to ire, they're easy to anger, they won't see that it's them. Okay? Because there is nothing funnier to me than somebody who does something wrong. They harm other people. They get caught lying, cheating, stealing, whatever. And so people are naturally angry at them for that thing, and they get angry at the. Okay. And so more often than not, I will laugh and go, let me get this straight. I'm angry at you, or they're angry at you because you did this very specific thing, right? You damaged that thing, you whatever. And so your response to that, instead of apologizing, atoning for your sins or whatever, is you're going to be angry at them. So they're angry at you for breaking their shit. You're angry at them because they're angry at you. I get it. It's funny and shit. Anyway, so, all right. So 5 needs, right? From, again, earth, water, fire, wind, void. From the earth realm is security. Okay. So if somebody needs that, right? Now, it's going to work in 2 different ways. Okay. Somebody can be, the weakness can be fear because the shit that's going on in the world or whatever, I need to see, right? Now, again, we have to be careful because security is something that we're all a part of, whether you would think about it that way or not. But self-defense, those kind of things, right? It's about keeping yourself safe. But we can also be easily controlled by people who focus on, this group over here or that political faction or that guy or whatever. They're going to take your security away, right? They're going to put you in harm's way, right? Ninja need to counter this, right? With one, Seishin, right? Seishin Teki, personal clarity, personal development, right? Where you're not easily swayed just because somebody said something or you lean in that direction, belief system wise or whatever. And so because that person said it, you're automatically going to jump to that. Okay. But we also need to make sure that we're high on the scale in understanding Kyujutsu Tenkan, truth and falsehood, right? That juxtapositioning of things. Okay. That we're able to see truths for truths and falsehood, bullshit, whatever, for that thing. A lot of people are easily manipulated that by and when we're using Kyujutsu Tenkan, right? That's a big part of this. But that only works when we know what their belief systems are. And the more entrenched those belief systems are, and the more unquestioning, or they can't be questioned, they can't be faulted, anything like that, the more susceptible somebody is to that kind of manipulation, right? So as ninja, if you're going to be using this to assert a dominant position, not that the person knows you're in a dominant position, but you're pulling the strings, right? People often talk about, oh, there's all these people behind the the curtain and whatnot. They're pulling the strings and whatever. Okay, right? So the fact that you know that it's going on shouldn't have it affecting you as much. Well, but they've got their fingers in everything, and okay, well, you could be self-employed, you could be more self-sufficient, you could be less easily manipulated. I'm not manipulated. I know what they're doing. They keep you distracted by bitching and complaining about what's going on instead of actually making improvements or figuring out how things are set up so that you can actually move forward. You can actually produce better results. They have you distracted with all the bullshit. Yeah, that's called manipulation. Okay. So anyway, but the other way to establish influence and things like that is to help people with food, clothing, shelter, whatever, right? Help to make their lives more stable, less chaotic, those kind of things, right? Do things like that for people, man, they will bend over backwards to help you. Okay. Many times in history, right, ninja would cultivate, right, a source or an accomplice or whatever who was, either being hunted or they were down on their luck or whatever, just by providing shelter, by providing food, resources, whatever. Okay. And this is something that I chuckle at on a regular basis, right? When, let's say, a political thing comes around or somebody is trying to sell you a product or whatever. What a lot of these people don't understand is that whatever their agenda or whatever their issues or whatever their, we'll call it the issues, right? Because we just had a political thing that ran through and whatnot, right? And so they're telling everybody what the issues or the important issues this time around are or should be. But what they don't get is that people that are just scraping to get by, that issue that you have, that thing about who knows, right? Healthcare or whatever, right? That doesn't directly relate to them. And even if it did, they can't do anything about it because they're just fighting to keep food on the table and keep gas in the car so they can get to work. And that pales in comparison, right? We need to be compassionate to everybody. Yeah, everybody else. I got to feed my damn kids. I got to keep clothes on them. Okay. So how are you going to help me in that direction? Okay. So again, when we talk about influence and getting people to help and whatnot, the default that most people come from is it makes sense to them, so therefore it should make sense to the other person. Okay? So for those of you in Mikyo, we have the 6 personality types, or the 6 realms, and all that kind of stuff. Each one of those realms, each one of those personality types, belief systems, whatever, think that they're the only one that's actually valid, and the other ones are made up. Those other people, their fears, their needs, their wants, their what, that's bullshit, right? The stuff they have to put up with, the pain and suffering and all that, and that's a figment of your imagination. Here's the way shit is. And that's thought of in every freaking realm, except the human realm. So anyway, all right. So from the, where am I? Water realm. The need here is sex. Okay. What can I tell you? But this can be expanded also to sense pleasures. Okay. Just like in Mikyo, when we talk about there's these vows and things like that are taken, the layman's vows. One is to not engage in like adulterous activities and things like that, because all these things, if we do them, it causes suffering, right? Excuse me. So while it could be sex, it could be supplying somebody with porn. It could be if it's physical interaction, it's physical interaction. But it could be just the innuendo. It could be flirting. It could be, but again, it could be sense pleasures as well, right? For some people, they're in a constant state of escapism because life sucks, right? So if you're going to help them get the drugs or the weed or the whatever, right? The alcohol, okay? Oh, they'll be your best buddy, okay? If the person is addicted to food, dude, want to go to lunch? My treat, okay? Hey, I was out, bought an extra box of, sugar-filled, sugar made, whatever, sugar glazed cupcakes or whatever. Want them? Okay, great. Don't say I never gave you anything. Okay. Never, ever, ever, ever ignore little statements like I just used. Okay. I was just watching a little video clip that somebody sent to me the other day. The actor Christopher Walken. You don't have to know who the person is, but he was on a talk show, and the interviewer said something like, "This isn't true, right? That you often tell people it's your birthday when it isn't." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I do that. Almost every film I'm on, but you can only do it once per film." It's like, what? How would you even do anything like that? And he goes, "Well, yeah, it's 6 a.m. early in the morning. I'm sitting in the chair there at the makeup artist and whatnot, and I'll pretend to be sad. And eventually they'll get around to saying, 'Hey, are you okay? What's wrong?' 'Oh, it's my birthday. I'm alone again.' Whatever, right? They have this little discussion. 'Oh, I'm sorry to hear. Oh, I got used to it. Whatever.' He said, but you always have to say, 'But don't tell anybody it's my birthday. Whatever you do, don't tell anybody.' By lunch, there's a cake, maybe some gifts, whatever. Okay? It's the same thing with the phrase, 'Don't ever say I didn't do anything for you. Don't ever say I didn't give you anything.' It's a very, very powerful phrase. Okay. I use a very powerful phrase at the dojo at the end of every class. What is it, James?
What did you learn today?
What did you learn today? One, it makes a student focus on the fact that they learned something and they just didn't just spend an hour in a class doing things. What specifically did you learn? Very often, students will try to default to, well, today I got better at. What did you fix to make that now better? Okay. This serves on multiple fronts. Students that have low self-confidence or are often distracted or whatever, or might be ruled by the whole fear kind of thing, right? Am I actually able to do this? Whatever. They hear themselves, okay, and it racks those things up, right? It helps to increase self-confidence and all that. But it also runs a tally sheet. I learned this, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this, right? I have not had a student try to quit or come to me and, just since I don't know, I don't think I'm getting this stuff. I don't feel like I'm learning anything in like 2 decades. Before that, when people would, who knows what, this week it was ninjutsu, next week it's underwater basket weaving, whatever, right? They get caught by something else shiny and they want to quit. See, they got to come up with better reasons or better excuses or whatever, because they won't be able to use I don't feel like it. I don't think I'm learning anything. Because at the end of every class, every student tells me what they learned. But they're also hearing that they learned something. Okay. So it helps me with student retention, especially through challenging times. Okay. When they might want to think about quitting or whatever, but they've got this whole storehouse of I learned. Okay. So human beings are easily distracted by things. And I get it. Life can be distracting and way heavy and whatnot. But if I can get students to verbalize for themselves, to themselves, that this is valuable, they're less likely to quit when they might need to make some changes in their lives. And it's either this or something else. I use this all the time. I tell people I'm using it all the time. Okay? But here is where Seishin Teki, personal clarity, ethics, a solid moral base, comes in because of the balance. It allows me to do these things without feeling bad. Yeah, but don't you feel bad about manipulating? And no, because I'm not doing it for my own self gain. I mean, do I keep students? Yeah, of course, right? But the primary reason for using it is to help a student get over potential tripping hazards or self-defeating habit patterns that may get in the way of learning what they're trying to learn, developing the skills they're trying to develop. Now, could me telling you this cause people to not want to listen anymore? Fuck him, go, they're going to go do something else. Or just be resentful because I told them. Yeah. Okay. But honesty is a good manipulator as well, especially to people who are afraid, fear, right, of being manipulated and are heavy on the security side of needs. Right? Because security is really all about being in control and being less susceptible or impervious to assault in any form, body, mind, spirit. Okay. All right. So fire realm, the need is wealth, right? Their desire for monetary gain, to have as much as possible, but it might not be wealth directly. It could be the appearance of wealth, which is now connected to the vanity side on the others, on the weaknesses scale. there's something you might see it in movies or whatever, but there is a modern saying, right, that every person has their price. Everybody can be bought. Just like everybody folds to torture, which is why overt torture doesn't work so well, because people will tell you what the hell you want to hear just to make the pain stop. Just like people who feel trapped in a relationship, their partner doesn't know anything is wrong because this trapped partner who doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, high on the sympathy side, or just fear of being seen as the bad person, right, will tell them whatever they want to hear. But then they're surprised that this person at some point pulled up stake and I don't want to be here anymore. I'm leaving. I didn't even know anything was wrong. I know it's because I just lied to you all the time. Anyway, so in this case, right, paying somebody off, offering them a chance. Again, these people are susceptible to cons because they want more than they're putting in, right? Lotteries are huge on this side. Okay. If you turn the card over and you look at the odds of winning are 1 in million or whatever, right? So then why do we do it? Well, see, because the benefit far outweighs the cost. So people will drop how much out of their paycheck every week, right? Because that ticket only cost $1, only cost $5. But man, if I win, look, okay, how much have you won over time? Well, I won like a $50 one here, I won a $20 one over there. Yeah, no, but how much did you spend compared to how much you won? If you looked at that, any sane person would go, holy shit, I've lost all this, but they're going to keep playing. Okay? They're going to keep playing because the ticket's only $1 or it's only $5 or it's only $10. But the payout, okay, if somebody's doing that, then you can bet that they're high on the laziness scale, okay, because they're not going to work for it. 2, you offered them money for something, or I'll take that load off of you or whatever. Either way, if you pay a bill for somebody or what, everything changes. Okay. At least temporary loyalty. And a lot of these things are tied to influence. James, was it this class or one of the other ones? Not class. I'm sorry. It's the podcast. They're classes. Was it this one or was it one of the coaching calls where I mentioned the book Influence by Robert Cialdini?
I think it was a coaching call recently.
There's a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. CIALDINA, I think. Cialdini. Yeah. So covers seven subconscious influencers or triggers that we're all susceptible to. And one of them is reciprocity. Do a favor for somebody, loan them money when they're, in need or whatever. Okay. Even if you say you don't have to pay me back. Well, that's a very powerful one. Okay. One, it can be used to keep somebody level and whatnot, because now they're not afraid that every time they bump into you, you're going to mention that they owe money, or they owe you money. But even if they did pay you back or whatever, right, you helped them. You did a good thing. So when you go to ask them for something and they have to say no because they can't, they're going to feel like crap, and they're going to be even more. There's going to be more and more pressure that builds for them to say yes the next time, or to somehow do something for you to help out. Okay, I can't loan you money, man. If I could, well, maybe you could help me out with this. You get this friend, isn't it? You know, Bob or whatever, right? Can you like send a message to Bob on Facebook or whatever, just introducing me, so that we can kind of connect or whatever. I don't want to like just go, bump into Bob and just drop your name or whatever, because it's just always that awkward kind of thing, right? Would you be willing to do that? Oh shit, yeah. Okay, very, very different. Okay, from the wind level, we have pride. Sorry, this headache is just killing me here. Pride, right? So vanity is it's these things are going to seem like they're a little bit they're not disconnected, because they come from the same realm. Vanity is the feeling that drives things, right? Pride is actually an intellectual thing. It's based on the appraisal of that someone has of their own worth or significance or whatever in the eyes of others. Okay, vanity is, look at me, look what I got. Okay, those kind of things. Okay, so when someone that they've made achievements, they've achieved certain things, certain status, certain levels or whatever, and this is not about, they shouldn't be proud of themselves, but often the pride creates it can create vanity, but it creates a situation where in this person's head, right, they've got this pride, but what it does is it creates a situation where they have to keep living up to that level, right? They cannot make any mistakes. They can't fail. They can't turn down opportunities to present that which they're good at. Okay. Even if the odds are overwhelming, right? So the thing that this is what got the samurai a lot, right? They would commit seppuku to prove that they weren't lying, right? Because the hara, right, center of self, hara, right, that was the center of mind. That's where the mind, heart, center of self was. Seppuku is about opening yourself up to show that you're not concealing anything. Of course, you friggin' die, right? But they would go that far to not lose face, to not, all for the sake of their self-image, their reputation, that kind of thing, right? So right, people are worried about their reputation, whatever. Might not be. I mean, it's still connected to vanity, but it's not. It's not the same, right? This is. They have something to back it up. And you know anybody that like thinks that they look way better than they do, or that they're wealthier than they are, or that they've got status in the community or whatever that they don't have, right? But they walk around that way, they talk a certain way. That's vanity. Okay. Pride is a person has established certain things, right? Something directly related to us. Was it 2000? 2000, I think. Taikai was held in Atlanta, Georgia. My teacher, Shosha Malmstrom, and his wife, Bonnie, hosted the event. And everybody was told, right, if you're fourth dan, you're, well, actually, my teacher told me, right, you're pissing around and avoiding the fifth dan test. Make sure when you come down here for this thing, you bring your fourth dan certificate and your Bujinkan membership card and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So I'm there. There is a reception with taiko drummers, the whole deal, the night before training is supposed to start. And I don't see him anywhere because I forgot my stuff at home. I've been doing that for years, right? Because I always told myself, you get 2 chances to pass the fifth dan test every class. So you could have been hit 8 classes out of 10, and class 9, swing 2, you got out of the way. Well, you're still a fifth dan. Okay. Knowing the history of that test, I always said that if I got tagged on the first one, I'm not sitting for the second part, and I'll be a fourth dan for the rest of my life because I would have died. Okay. That test wasn't just to test your ability to move when you need to move and your ability to sense unseen danger. That test that way is also a way to keep people out of the upper levels of training, the advanced stuff that have no freaking business being there. Okay. However, so anyway, he finds me. I have little small talk, just trying to steer around this testing thing, right? And he goes, "Did you bring your, you got your stuff with you, right? Certificate, your membership card?" And I went, "I forgot it. I guess I can't test. I don't have my paperwork." He goes, "I'm your teacher. I'm your paperwork. You're testing." So that put me in a state. And so anyway, so Saturday night before dinner was when we were all meeting at one of the conference rooms in this hotel, this big giant freaking hotel they used. And so it's leading up to that. Training had finished for the day. We're packing up our stuff. And this one, I don't know what his rank is anymore. Do know what his name is. First name is Victor, but we'll leave it at that. So he comes over and introduces himself and he said, "Hi, you got that school in Pennsylvania." Yeah. So he goes, "So you're testing tonight, right?" "Yeah, I couldn't get out of it." He goes, "Don't worry about it. You'll pass, right? I've seen you move. Azumi Sensei, speaks well of you and all that. You'll pass, no problem." I'm like, "Well, I wish I had the confidence that you have, because you're going to do fine. Okay, you can do a lot better than a lot of the 10th dans that are running around here." "What the hell are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, most of the 10th dans that are running around here, or they're 5th dans and above, whatever, right? If they had to take that test again, and of course they don't, right? If they had to take that test again, they'd fail." So again, I'm, fairly young buck at this point. And he said, "The reason that you're going to pass is because your survival mechanism is on, which is going to be necessary for this. But the reason they would fail is ego, right? They've all made a name for themselves. They're at this rank. What would it look like if they failed that test, which was way down here?" Right? So their fear of failing, their fear of not looking good, that pride is what would cause them to fail, because it'll be in the way. Okay. Anyway, right. So you can feed it and actually get somebody to push themselves outside of their comfort zone, right? In which case they'll waver and fall. Or you can you can offer a way for them to regain lost pride, lost self-esteem, that kind of thing, right? Or you can threaten an action, threaten to do something, say something, tell somebody something or whatever that would humiliate someone who has status, who has prestige, that kind of stuff, right? Just they will do anything, just like that samurai with the seppuku. They will do anything to not lose what they already have. Okay? Which is why in Mikyo, we talk about the problems with attachment a lot. And then let's see, from the void realm, pleasure, right? How's that different from sex? Well, what we're talking about here is the void is a combination of many things, right? So what allows somebody to experience pleasure, right? Well, they have to feel comfortable, right? They have to feel secure. They have to feel like they're in control, or they have the ability to do things, right? It can include wealth, right? The ability to, I mean, my wife and I like to go on cruises and stuff. Not cheap, but my wife is quite the bargain hunter. So, sex, whatever, right? People want a comfortable life. Okay. They're in that God realm. They're in that battling Titan or jealous God realm. Pride's in there, right? They'll do anything to maintain this, right? Couple that with the human being's natural desire to lean toward pleasurable things and avoid painful or unpleasurable or boring things, right? Ask a teenager, why didn't you clean your room? Why'd you hang out with your friends all day? Oh, bullshit. They know why. Because cleaning your room sucks. I don't want to do that. Hang out with my friends. We're laughing and having a good time. Adults are no different. Okay. If you look at all the inventions, all the things, all the processes, all the habits and patterns that people set up for themselves, it's to increase, maintain, sustain, and add to their level of comfort, and to minimize, eliminate, or avoid negativity. That sound familiar to anybody? Okay. If you're in the Mikyo training, that's the 4 right efforts. Okay. Add the positive, increase and maintain the positive, do more of it, minimize and eliminate the negative, and avoid adding more negative. Right. So, not a bad thing. But if you have somebody that's addicted to just hanging out, this is also tied to lazy. Okay. Because remember, they'll avoid work, they'll avoid all the extra stuff just because they just want to always do things that feel good. They don't have to do all that other shit over there. Okay? And you can tell. Right? I know people that keep getting like fired from jobs, or eventually they get pushed out because wherever they worked, anybody's better than nobody at all. But they can't conceal the fact that they don't want to be there. And so they mistreat customers, they mistreat coworkers, whatever, or they're slackers, right? They're always just hanging off, laughing, or smoking another cigarette and having, their 15th 10-minute break since they started working an hour and a half ago, whatever, right? Because, well, maybe you don't, but you get the idea. So anyway, the way for us to not be manipulated by those kind of things, or not be controlled by these things, is self-knowledge. I mean, Seishin Teki is the big thing. But let's get back to how others would be able to use this. But before I do that, James, questions, comments, anybody before I roll next piece?
Greg said, I think it's good that we can learn our own weaknesses as well with what you have been pointing out.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to this, right? Right. That's why Seishin Teki Kyoyo, the spiritual refinement, personal development areas of study, the Tokakure school came first. You need this to develop the kind of resiliency and fortitude and stuff like that I've been talking about in some of these episodes, so that you can challenge yourself, you can do the things that are going to be needed to be done to grow, to change, to make changes, to develop the unwavering commitment when that killer's in front of you. And you can't be distracted by, he could kill me. Well, no, duh. Okay. But if you can't trust in yourself and you can't trust in your skill levels, now, as long as you didn't blow smoke up your own ass, then you, quote unquote, have a fighting chance. Right. But also these other skills that are to come for Otogakure Ninja, right? We have to understand why we're doing them and that they serve a greater good. Just like, this person is facing me. I'm going to cover this on Whiteboard Wednesday, right? And I create an opening, just knowing that this guy will not be able to resist himself. And he comes in and I break him. Right? I set this guy up to be broken. Now, if I were doing that from a perspective of entrapment, right? Entrapment is talking somebody into doing something that they would not normally do, right? So you can bust them. From the law enforcement perspective, entrapment is setting up somebody to do something that's right. Okay. I spin a big story and all that and convince him that this is going to be great and all that. And he's got all these objections and I get him past it. It's basically a sales pitch, right? And then I get him to do it and then I bust him for doing it. That's entrapment. Okay. Insinuating myself or getting myself into a group of thieves or stoners or drug addicts or whatever, or drug dealers or whatever that are doing these things, right? And then telling them that there's this thing that's happening over here, right? As though I'm just a person in the group, right? And they go, okay, that's a much bigger payoff over here than that thing, those three things that we were going to do. Right? Those people are going to be yelling entrapment all day long. You set me up, man, because you told me about that. You were going to freaking rob somebody. You were looking at 3 robberies over here. I pointed you in this direction. Why? Because I can't watch 3 places. I can't split my team up to watch 3 places. But if I can direct your need to steal, to get stoned, to sell drugs, to do whatever it is, right? So that you're easier to stop, that's not the same. And Seishin Teki, this is not making sense out of bullshit. This is understanding the morality and the ethics and things like that. So there's 2 sides to this. One, we need it because of what we're going to need as knowledge and personal traits and like I said, like resilience and that kind of stuff, to be able to weather the hardships of growth and personal development and learning and all that kind of stuff. That's one side, right? But these other things, this manipulation shit, right? Ninja uge, deception, manipulation, control, influence, those kind of things, right? Unless you understand, or unless you're coming at it from a perspective where it's for the greater good, right? I'm breaking this guy to prevent him from breaking other people, okay? That kind of stuff. Without Seishin Teki, it's too easy to fall into corrupt thinking and using this stuff for the wrong reasons. Because I was told this on both ends, Ninpo and Mikyo, very early on in my training in both realms, that once you understand this stuff, There is no one or nothing that you cannot have, that you cannot not have, right? You can have anything you want. So what stops you from abusing it? On the Ninpo side, Seishin Teki. On the Mikyo side, still same thing, but it's a very high moral base, very strong moral base. Okay. So let's take a look at this from the Chunin and Jonin levels. Okay. So again, we want to tie this to them, right? But hopefully everybody's getting this as kind of a layered progressive framework, right? Not just in this lesson, but I am kind of hoping that by teaching the topics that I'm teaching, people can see that not everybody really is teaching the same thing, right? Look at most of the videos on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, right? How many videos do we need of people teaching Seion, Tangeki, Nichigeki, whatever? Right? How the hell are you going to use it? So I mean, being completely transparent here, but that's also a form of manipulation and control as well, because it establishes credibility, trust, a whole bunch of other things too. But right, I'm hoping that these things distinguish our approach, my approach, right, from more general or superficial training approaches. It's just what it is, right? So, yes, I want to give everybody, what they need and whatever to move forward. But at the same time, these are also recruitment devices. They're designed to make sure that, I'm hoping, and it's bared out, I think, James, that people that binge watch or listen or whatever to Whiteboard Wednesday and KUDEN and whatnot, that at some point they'll want to actively train and they'll choose to do it in our direction. And they turn out to be the best students that we have. Okay. Or some of the best students we have. Anyway, so let's take a look. Chunin and Jonin, right? So the Chunin, right, the coordinators, middle level operatives, they're like M in the James Bond movies and books and whatnot. But like I said, I think in a previous training, and again, I don't know if it was with you guys or closed door stuff that we do, in a lot of the intelligence networks that are out there, right? Sometimes they're just called C, but it stands for control, right? So either way, right? But they're the ones that they get the mission or the needs, and so they divvy it up. I get that from the Jonin, and then they divvy it up between different gaining operatives. So they're managing these folks, right? One of the skill sets that a Chunin has to have is ferreting out bad operatives, lazy operatives, operatives that would be easily turned, ones that had been turned, all that kind of stuff, right? So they really have to understand human nature. Okay. So, but they also have to understand missions and what's the best way to get the information, right? And sometimes it wasn't just a direct assault kind of thing, right? So I'll talk about that in a minute here. But the Chunin really excels in influencing bigger outcomes by leveraging their understanding of interpersonal dynamics and battlefield psychology, right? I just started watching a series my wife turned me onto this thing. The Last Kingdom. I don't know if anybody's seen it or not, but in the very first episode, the Saxons, early Brits, are trying to hold onto the land. And this is way into the storyline, because if you know anything about the Vikings, the Vikings never called themselves Vikings. And in this one, they actually, it explains it a little bit better. They called themselves Danes, whatever. But they didn't just go and attack, right? They ran out of resources and stuff. They had a really, really big empire and community and all that kind of stuff of their own. But their population grew bigger than they could grow things and farm and all that kind of stuff. So their initial contact with the Saxons was to do trade and whatnot. But as it goes in lots of places, right? We're coming here, but I'm going to protect my land, and you're the outsider, so you got to go. And it didn't go well. But anyway, very much like the Spartans, because as soon as I saw this, I thought, shit, the Spartans did something very much like this. But the Vikings, we'll use that term, right? Big wooden shields, that kind of things, right? And so they would line up on a battle line, rows behind each, right? And then front would drop. The group behind them would sink a little less, but they would overlap their shields over the bottom row. Next row up, they're up a little bit higher. They overlap. They would do these things 3 or 4 shields high and literally create a wall. Okay. So the Saxons went into attack and they were making headway, but there was a flanking maneuver where these guys came around after the second wave of Saxons came in, who were supposed to wait until, because the first wave is to figure out where the weaknesses are, where they can concentrate strengths. Really cool strategy. Except something got mixed up, or somebody got a little overzealous or whatever, brought the second wave in, and as soon as they cleared a space and they're all attacking this one wall, the flanking maneuver, right? So the wall's lined up this way. Saxons come in here. There's a ravine. Next group is waiting in here. So everybody's now attacking this wall, and this group literally comes out and comes in from behind and initially just starts thinning the herd, so to speak, right? And then as soon as the ones in the middle figure out what's going on, and now it's a divide and conquer kind of thing, because half or a third is staying on the original wall and they're making some headway. The other ones have to turn and go after the second wall, or this not the second wall. Sorry, giving things ahead or heads up too far ahead. But to turn and be dealing with these guys, a command was yelled, and then this group, the flanking group, did the same thing, and they created a second wall. And so now what you have is this army in the middle, and they didn't close it or anything like that. But what you had now were 2 walls that you couldn't break through. And then once they thinned it, and very much like the Spartans, they hid from behind it. And then when a body moved in between that star shape of 4 overlapping things, they would just reach through and kill them from behind the wall. Right. I'm a huge fan of battle tactics. But anyway, right. So that's what I mean by battlefield psychology, right? How do we control the way they're thinking, where the vulnerabilities are, what their tactics are, and how we can manage that, all that. Okay. So tune-in tactics align with this idea of this subtle manipulation, right? As they're often managing relationships and information within a mission, ensuring that not just that they're getting the information back, but they're ensuring that allies and enemies both act in ways that are beneficial to the clan. Okay, that's a huge thing, right? Because often the way the books have been written, or the stories have been told and whatnot, is, the ninja would, this guy went nuts or whatever. I don't have a lifetime allegiance to you. We're going to break off and go align with this guy over here because he will support our people and our community and whatnot. And so, right. And he's an enemy of this one over here. No, but the families they weren't always the ones making the shifting, right? They could turn enemies into allies of each other. The best way to do that is what? Insert a common enemy to both of them, right? They now have to team up to fight the common enemy, and that creates a bonding that's fused in trauma. Okay, it's like relationships that come out of trauma. People that maybe there were coworkers or whatever, and there's a workplace violence incident, right? And they hunker down and have to survive this thing, end up bonding, right? And then they end up with this relationship. Now, truth be told, they don't often last that long, but sometimes they do. Or allies, right, that are with each other, then you sow some mistrust and whatnot and break people up. So we don't necessarily have to change. We can get that group over there to kick his ass, but they were allies. What happened? Or whatever, right? So in training, right, or for your own personal training, right, what we need to be looking at is how to read an opponent's body language. Right, I already mentioned this stuff: micro expressions and tendencies. Right, this kind of stuff fits like the Chunin's mindset, or their role of gathering actionable intelligence and then subtly steering outcomes. Okay, when we say tendencies, right, we're looking for tells. Right, I had a student once, really good. He went all the way to 4th degree black belt. Life kind of shifted him away and whatnot. To get him past 2nd degree into those upper, more advanced levels, we had to constantly point out in more than one way that he had this huge tell that he didn't even know he had. He thought he was positioning his legs ready to go to attack or counter, but what that was the way he was doing it, it created a butt wiggle. So he'd position in, and then just before he was going to go, because he thought he needed to, stabilize his feet for a powerful launch. And so when he was moving his feet and legs to do that, his ass would wiggle, right? So as soon as you saw that, you knew to go first or to reposition to increase the distance and take away his opportunity. Right. So it's that kind of thing. Right. So again, some of this stuff we're going to be talking about during on Whiteboard Wednesday. Right. So, but this is really about, like, the Chunin's job is to send out the missions. Yes, the gaining or collecting information, but they're bringing it back to a central source, and it's the Chunin's job to put that together. Actionable intelligence is intelligence that you can now act on, right? Do we attack? Do we manipulate? Do we sow divisive seeds over here? That kind of thing. Okay. My wife likes to point out, when she likes to point out when women do it, but we can all learn a lot from it. People do it all the time, right? When somebody's being really, really friendly, she'll see this in movies if the storyline is done well, but she sees it out in the world all over the place, right? Where somebody will strike up a conversation, and that will lead toward the person they're talking to, or they struck up the conversation with, that will lead toward their relationship that will then steer it towards problems, right? And so they'll get the other person to open up about things not going well. Okay. One, you never share information about your relationship to outside people because they're looking for chinks in the armor. And if they're looking to break you up, or you're with somebody, okay, which means you have value, somebody has chosen you. Okay. This is an important understanding of psychology, okay, relationship psychology. When you are single, it seems like you don't have any opportunities or nobody takes you up on dates or whatever, like unless you've got a lot of money or a lot of looks. Okay. But as soon as you get with somebody, it seems like other people are expressing interest or flirting or whatever. Okay. Sorry, ladies. I know that you're not all the same. However, men and women look for characteristics that are very different from each other. Okay. Women tend to look for security and kind of a confidence thing, right? And so they're looking for value. So if a guy's single, there must be something wrong with him. If he's with somebody, then he must have value. Okay? So, but is she breaking them up because she wants him, or is she breaking them up because she is a friend of the other person in a relationship or knows them and is going to sow seeds of division by telling the other person, oh, he was telling me about all these things, or he was, flirting or whatever, right? Or are they just an ass and they don't like everybody else having a nice life? Who knows? You don't know until you actually look at the dynamics. Anyway, very quickly here, Jonin's level approach. All right. So the Jonin as leader and master strategist, right? The Jonin really represents or exemplifies like the top level of these skills. Okay. So they operate with an overarching view, right? Very soft view because they're tied into society, all that kind of stuff, right? They're very often influencing outcomes without direct confrontation or detection. Like nobody knows that they're a ninja. Nobody would even suspect. Okay. So their ability to manipulate perceptions, to manage emotions, both theirs and others, right? Their ability to strategize across psychological, emotional, and physical domains, right, ties directly into this. Okay. So the way this might show up in training is we can look for or set up training drills or whatever where we're learning how to create false perceptions, right? The illusion of strength or vulnerability or neutrality, or whatever, right? While controlling an adversary's reactions. Right? This is a huge Jonin's thing. One of the earliest lessons, and you guys might have already heard this one. When you are weak, appear strong. When you are strong, appear weak. Right? This is very, very different, right? If you have an injury, okay, lead with the injury, right? The common thing to do would be to turn the strong side forward, okay? And then that way you're protecting the injured limb or whatever, okay? But most fighters, right? See, everybody knows how it's done, right? Just read the comments in the videos. Everybody knows how you fight. Yep. So I'm leading with what? Well, that's your distracting hand. That's your jabbing hand. That's your setup, right? The power stuff is in the rear. Yeah. Okay. So I could do either, right? We could have them overlook the strong side that I put forward, right? And then attack him with that. But if that gets damaged, now I'm screwed, right? Or I could put the injured side out front, right? But position it so that it's difficult for him to get at and leave him worried about the other stuff, right? If you're a really good wrestler, suck at punching and kicking. Learn how to stand and move like somebody who's good at punching and kicking. You don't have to punch and kick. You just have to look like you're really good at it. The opposite's true. If you're really good at punching and kicking, but you suck at wrestling, set yourself up in position like a wrestler. Okay? Because they do two different things. If I set myself up like a puncher and a kicker, right? Because I'm really, really good at wrestling, he has to figure out how to get inside the punching and kicking so he can wrestle me, or he has to stay away, stay outside of range. But once he gets inside, to not get punched and kicked and all that, then he's going to run right into my strength. Okay? If I'm really good at punching and kicking, set myself up like a wrestler, he's going to stay outside of my grabbing reach and inside the punching and kicking reach. Okay. So again, false perceptions. Right. So from Jonin's perspective, Jonin, from their role, right, it's all mastery of deception and influence, right? That their job is to hide in plain sight. Okay? So again, gaining, we apply these things like self-defense, whatever, and the gaining would use skills like this out on missions and whatnot. But again, they're more situational, more mission specific rather than systemic and overarching, right? It's not what they do all the time, right? So by introducing these things to students at that level, or like in self-defense context and things like that, it allows students to understand the tactical groundwork necessary for mastery at these other levels, or when applying a Chunin level or Jonin level ninjutsu. Okay, so there's a lot more that I could go into this, but we're at the 3-hour point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open this up for any last minute questions or comments, kind of wrap this up, and maybe at some point coming up, we'll do like a part 2, part 3, if folks are interested. If not, no harm, no foul. But we could take a look at like strategic power and subtle influence, those kind of things, right? Just from the basic realm, and then we'd be crossing over into KUDEN Tenkan and whatnot. But most students, right, whether they consciously realize it or not, crave the ability to feel in control, especially in uncertain or hostile situations. Okay, and so by looking at how subtlety rather than brute force leads to dominance, right? This kind of training becomes more refined and becomes more attractive, and people can see how it fits into the self-protection and personal mastery realms at the same time. So, but again, that's the whole other can to dive into. Just understand that we're ultimately, right, mixing these things in with the Kyujutsu Tenkan, right, the interchange of truth and falsehood, right? And these are to be used in situations where we have to deceive an opponent. We have to convince them that one thing is real when something else is. Or we need them as an ally. We need them as at least a temporary aid for things. Or we need to redirect their attention so that whatever wrath or whatever isn't coming at me, right? Or you, right? But also, we need to make sure that we're clear that the Seishin Teki, right, the personal clarity stuff, the spiritual refinement, the moral and ethical base, those kind of things. This ensures that we ask the right questions And there's actually three things, right? We'll wrap this up. Okay. It ensures that we ask the right questions, that we remain emotionally neutral, and that we focus on long-term outcomes. So maybe some of these other things will pop out, and you'll remember these from previous episodes. But asking the right questions like, why am I doing this? Right? Why am I manipulating, deceiving, or influencing, that kind of thing, right? Well, a lot of things that I do in the dojo, right? When I'm teaching and whatnot. Everything from pre-frames to reframes, from NLP, body language things. Or sometimes we have a really harsh class and I'm saying no a lot and getting people to doubt themselves or wonder what the hell, because I need for them to ask the question, how am I doing that? Because they don't know, right? If I just say, all right, just be mindful, don't do this, do the whatever, people, they often don't know what the hell they're doing. Okay, because it's subconscious or unconscious as far as a habit pattern goes. Okay, so another right question is, am I acting out of fear, anger, revenge, whatever, or is this necessary for a higher purpose? Right? Do I feel like I have to get this person back because they slighted me, or whatever? Okay. So number two, remaining emotionally neutral. A ninja maintains heijoshin. I covered this a couple of episodes ago, right? Heijoshin is calm, ordinary mind, right? Even while creating chaos in the opponent's perceptions. Right? We don't have any tells. It's just we just carry it out like it's our everyday. This is how we are. Okay, but this also helps with being calm under pressure when it's obvious that the other person is trying to manipulate or influence or whatever, right? Just to go about your business like you're talking to them and everything like you don't know, like you don't notice. Okay? My teenagers used to be irritated because God, you see everything. What do I see? Well, you see this and you see this, and it's just like we can't do any. I only call out like 10% of what I see. That wasn't all the teenagers. There were a couple that trying to manipulate and all kinds of stuff, right? So, but anyway, right? Can we go through our lives and can we do things in their presence like we're completely oblivious to what they're doing, or looking like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, doing this thing, right? Because now it's one thing if we believe that I'm giving up control, I'm giving up power, and I'm dwelling on the fact that they're manipulating, or am I making strategic decisions and go, oh, that's a good idea, because I'm fostering a false sense of confidence in them that they've got more control than they actually have? Because if they don't think they have the control, they're going to either ramp things up or they're going to be cautious because they're going to be looking for things that you're doing. But once they hit a stage of overconfidence, just like rage, they're not going to see the thing that you're actually doing that pulls the carpet out from under them. And number three, focus on long-term outcomes. The serious practitioner, we'll call him the wise practitioner, right? Avoids short-term ego gratification and considers how their actions align with their role as a warrior protector or as a part of the broader mission, whatever, right? I mean, just a big problem that a lot of people have who want to be more successful, who want to be a higher level black belt or just getting to black belt, or that want a better life or whatever, is they cannot self-manage and avoid short-term gratification. Right? They can't not buy that $6 cup of frickin' specialty coffee because, well, you got to have your, little pleasures in life. Yeah, how many of those you buy a month? Stop bitching you don't have any money. Okay? Same thing goes for a lot of things. Right? How long's the pleasure for that thing going to last compared to what you're trying to build? Oh, I know, but that's hard. Yeah, I know. We do the hard so we can Rest easy. Or we do easy and we're constantly being bombarded by the hardship that life is going to send at us no matter what the fuck we do. All right. So, and this integration of Seishin Teki and the Ninja no Uge, the Kyojutsu Tenkan, all this other stuff, right, is really this is where the advanced practitioner lives, right? And it should be the aim of anybody that really wants to move into the advanced levels. It's not doing more tricky physical techniques or whatever. It's applying these things, right? So even if your uke knows that you're doing it, they can't stop you because of when you do it or how you do it. One of my guys passed away a couple of years ago as a result of that COVID shit. Used to laugh right in the middle of the technique because I catch him and he would laugh and everybody would look at him like, what the hell? He'd go, I know exactly what he's doing, because he knew the skills, know exactly what he's doing. I just can't stop him when he does it because of when he does it. So what I always tell students is, you want to be an advanced practitioner, you need to be able to use this stuff against people who know this stuff, because it's easy to blow smoke up or confuse or distract or manipulate people who have no idea. But to be able to control and manipulate people who have the same skill set, that's some cool shit. All right, let me get back over here. James, any last minute questions, comments, long-term FUs?
Just from earlier, Dave said reciprocity is a huge one.
Absolutely. Reciprocity is huge, but most people try to do even the playing field with reciprocity, right? You never like, I want something big from him. So I could do something big, but sometimes it's not what I do, right? I can actually ask somebody to do me a favor to get a bigger favor. Okay. So I could preempt, right? Give him a gift that's this. One of my guys, is Erskine on?
If he is, he hasn't said anything.
Okay. Well, Erskine ended up getting off the hook for any gifts for a couple of years. I think he took things back or whatever, but showed up at my house one day with a gift. Right? I'm telling you right now, it worked. So he showed up with an AR-15. I have it, but I don't feel like getting it out. Right? He took it to a friend to laser engrave it. So on the extraction port cover and the magazines and stuff like that, he had my military police insignia laser engraved on the weapon. So one, he built this thing. That's awesome. Two, gifted this thing. And three, it was personalized. So absolutely. Did I, in that moment, immediately feel like I owed this guy something? Yeah, more than a class or two. Right. So this shit works, right? But if and again, you don't have to wait to pull the stuff from the scrolls or whatever. There's plenty of things. You can go to the Bansen Chukai, you can go to Shuninki, you can go to the Nimpiden. There's a couple of other ones that were put out or whatever. But go to, let's see, just looking across here, Robert Greene, spelled with an extra E, Greene, the 48 Laws of Power. Huge. I already talked about Influence by Robert Cialdini. You go to things like that, right? How to Get Anyone to Do Anything. I can't remember that guy's name. That's awesome. NLP, anything on neurolinguistic programming, NLP at work, those kind of things. The Gentle Art of Verbal Self-Defense, okay, is all on the early stages of NLP and stuff like that. Okay, and how to come at it. It's really broken down. It could have been a ninja practitioner writing this book, because for every situation or whatever, right? Every problem, communication wise, there's five options, right? You can go down through these things and go, well, shit, that's an earth one, that's a water one, that's a fire one, right? So really good stuff, right? But you don't have to limit yourself just because the damn book doesn't have the word ninja or Bujinkan or a nin symbol or whatever on it. Okay? That's where people get themselves jacked so badly, right? They don't realize that shit's out there all over the place. Yeah, I don't mean shit. You get the idea. All right. Anything else? What else we got, James?
A Maritis Ronisher said, "Thank you for your insights."
You are welcome.
And Dave just said a buddy of mine wanted a new computer, so he bought his wife a nice new sewing machine before asking for the computer.
Anybody's ever trained with Shirai Sensei in Japan? That man is scary good, leaving everybody believing that he's like Columbo, right? But he more situations. And I remember going up to Toronto. He was visiting friends, and my friend needed my car for transportation, so I was the taxi and whatnot. But man, the stuff I learned. So we take Shirai Sensei. You want to go shopping because fruit in Japan is really freaking expensive, right? It's an island, right? So everything is imported. So took him to a grocery store, and he saw this one thing. I can't remember what it was anymore. And he goes, "Oh, buying. Well, my wife will really like this." Right now, I've asked him in the past, right? Because he's like in class all the time. If he's not teaching, he's in Sensei's class or whatever. And so does your wife like you training? He goes, so that's a big fat no. So he was buying this thing. He's a gift for wife, right? And I said, "Oh, does she like that?" He goes, "Yes." Never forget balance, right? Maintain balance. So that'll keep her from being upset next time you go to class? Nope. It'll keep her remembering I bought her something. So, yeah, cool stuff. Anyway, anything else?
No, sir. That was it.
All right. In that case, I will talk to everybody again next week, unless I see you on Whiteboard Wednesday or whatever. Don't forget, if you're doing the Friday virtual class this week, it's not on Friday. It'll be on Thursday. Ninja manipulation. We can have our Christmas party and have training too. That's the cake. Never mind. I'll talk to everybody again next time. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.